Guys, we got a big video today as another big tornado event is about to begin across the Mississippi Valley, and it could very well continue into the Great Lakes tomorrow. Welcome back, guys. My name is Braden Anthony, and you are watching Phantom Weather Channel. Today, we're going to be talking about another potential tornado outbreak that's going to be beginning this evening across parts of the Mississippi Valley down there into the Ozarks. It's going to last throughout the overnight with nocturnal tornadoes, and then we're going to see another threat of big severe weather and strong tornadoes ramping up across areas that don't usually see them across parts of the Great Lakes. So first and foremost, here's a look at today's SPC outlook. We, again, just like last Friday, have two separate moderate risk of severe weather over a very similar area. The first one is going to be there over parts of eastern Iowa into northwest Illinois, and the southern one's going to be across parts of southern Missouri into Arkansas. These are the areas where we have the greatest confidence in seeing significant severe weather beginning later on this afternoon and lasting throughout the overnight into tomorrow morning. But we could have isolated severe weather all the way up into the central Great Lakes. So let's break down those individual threats here. First off, here's our tornado outlook. These yellow and red shades here are going to be where we think it's going to be especially favorable to get strong tornadoes. There is some uncertainty as to how this is going to happen, especially up there across parts of Iowa and Illinois, where we might have a little bit of cap inversion, which could limit a lot of the overall storms, but get a couple of storms firing in that potent environment, and we could get significant tornadoes. Further south, across parts of Missouri and Arkansas, we're also going to have a dangerous tornado threat here, and it's likely not going to come until we get into the late evening. So this is a overnight threat of strong to potentially even violent tornadoes north of Little Rock and south of St. Louis here. So something that we are definitely watching very carefully. The hail threat's also going to be pretty high, especially across the northern Mississippi Valley. And then we're also watching a wind threat as well from the Ozarks and the Arklatex all the way up there into southern Wisconsin. So let's break down our simulated radar for the northern mode here across parts of Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Missouri. So it's going to take a little while and likely won't be until about 6 p.m. that we see things get going, but by 6 or 7 p.m. we're going to have two separate areas of storms. The first one's going to be out here across Iowa into southern Wisconsin. These are the ones that are going to definitely be in an area supportive of strong tornadoes. Over here across Iowa and into southern Minnesota, these here is going to be a little bit more of a hail and damaging wind threat, but there could be some isolated tornado activity as well. And just take a look at how strong and favorable these ingredients are for tornadoes across the warm front here. What we're looking at is something called significant tornado parameter, often referred to as STP. And usually the higher, or the brighter colors on the screen, I should say, that you have are just indicating an environment, more supportive of getting strong, damaging tornadoes. And right there along the northward moving warm front, we have a very favorable quarter for strong tornado potential. So this would be for areas near Davenport into northern Illinois. If you get a storm firing right there in the late afternoon into the evening, it could go bonkers very quickly. So definitely something that we are watching. But by late evening, here's your simulated radar. Again, kind of two cluster modes of storms here. They're going to evolve into a cluster along the warm front, which will be moving across southern Wisconsin and eventually crossing into Lake Michigan as we get closer to midnight. Now, as the storms do move into Michigan here, they're going to lose a lot of their steam, and they're going to be along the warm front anyway, so it's mainly going to be maybe a light hail threat here, but the tornado threat should be slim to none once they do cross into Michigan. We're also going to have another squall line here, possibly a more potent one across parts of Missouri into southern Iowa, and this is all kind of slightly past midnight, maybe the 1 or 2 a.m. period. And then just kind of here's your scenario to start tomorrow morning. You're going to have some isolated scattered storms here in central Michigan with that squall traversing across central Illinois by the time that the sun's starting to come up tomorrow morning. So these storms at this point should not be that severe, maybe isolated threat of large hail. Now let's turn our attention to the southern mode here. And this one is looking, honestly, in my opinion, possibly more interesting than the northern mode here. And that's not a good thing because this model does not show storms firing until we get into about 9 9 or 10 p.m. And if that happens, we will be looking at a substantial threat of overnight tornadoes here across northern Arkansas into southern Missouri. So let's assume this model was correct. If it was, we could have multiple clusters of supercell thunderstorms here right around midnight. We're thinking 10 to 12 p.m. here. We're definitely watching a threat of significant tornadoes, especially across central Missouri, all the way down there into northern Arkansas. So these storms are going to be separated. They're going to be in a very favorable environment for strong tornadoes, and we'll definitely be watching this very carefully. The Storm Prediction Center even includes the mention of strong to violent tornadoes, which for reference sake, a strong tornado is considered a tornado that has an EF2 or higher rating, and a violent tornado is EF4 or higher. So God forbid, if we see an EF4 type intense tornado tonight, you're going to want to have multiple ways to receive warnings. And when we say multiple, we're not just talking about your phone and the alarm system outside. Make sure you have your phone and the alarm system, but also make sure you have that TV ready. Make sure you're listening to the broadcast meteorologist on TV. Make sure that you're looking at social media for updates from the National Weather Service as well. Any trusted sources you can get, you're going to want to have late tonight. Keep that NOAA weather radio on. Do whatever you can to keep yourself safe late tonight, because there could be a threat of nocturnal tornadoes. And this will continue until the storms eventually weaken by the time that they move closer to St. Louis and the cold front storms here. I shouldn't say cold front, but the shortwave trough storms here over Missouri into Iowa begin to take over, and those will not be as intense. So here's a look at those tornado ingredients. Look at how potent they are across the Ozarks into the central Mississippi Valley as we head into the late evening and overnight here. So you get an isolated storm to fire out in this open warm sector. It's not going to be a good sign. So watch this very carefully. Definitely something that we have to keep an eye on. Now the madness continues. Here is a look at tomorrow's SPC outlook here. And I live in southern Michigan, and this one definitely has caught my attention. So the lower Great Lakes all the way down into the central Mississippi River Valley, all the Ohio Valley practically, you are under an enhanced risk of severe weather. Possibly could get upgraded to a moderate risk. If it does, it's likely to happen across parts of lower Michigan. So here's a look at those individual threats, and this is dumbfounding because we never see this in lower Michigan, but there is a 10% chance of a tornado within 25 miles of your area, which seems low, but for reference sake, it usually doesn't get over 2% in the lower Great Lakes. So definitely a very interesting thing that we're going to have here. Let's actually zoom into the lower Great Lakes so we can take a look at some separate locations. Practically the entire state of lower Michigan is going to be under this 10% hatch risk here. This also includes parts of Illinois, Indiana, and Ohio as well. So areas like Indianapolis, Chicago, Grand Rapids, Lansing, Saginaw, Detroit, Flint, all these areas here have the potential to see not only several tornadoes in the region, but also strong tornadoes as well. And that's a significant rarity to see, especially the further north that you go into lower Michigan. So very concerning severe weather day for tomorrow, and we will definitely have our eyes on that event. Now, we're also going to be looking at a threat of significant large hail across the lower Great Lakes as well. If we do see those supercells here, the environment's already supportive of strong tornadoes. We could also get very large hail as well, possibly up to or in excess of golf ball size. And then that damaging wind outlook since last night's outlook has been expanded to include southern lower Michigan and the lower and other parts of the lower Great Lakes as well. So all severe hazards are going to be on the table. The primary area of concern will be across Michigan into northern Indiana, and there could be an upgrade to a moderate risk if confidence increases on the tornado potential. But we're going to go over some of those limiting factors, and we're starting off with the simulated radar by tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, you're going to have these elevated warm front storms here across northern Michigan. Not too big of a deal. Similar scenario down there in Indiana. Not too big of a deal. But look what happens as we get into the late morning into the early afternoon. We're going to have this big cluster here trying to move into the Three Corners region of Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan here. And it's actually a good thing if we see these storms out ahead of the cold front, because it will significantly suppress the tornado potential if we saw this, because the storms are moving northeast, meaning that they're not going to have access to those environmental ingredients that are supportive of strong tornadoes. And they're also going to make it very difficult for the cold front to regain strength. If we can't see that air mass recovery behind all these storms, if all these early afternoon storms eat up all the instability in eastern Michigan, then the air mass isn't going to recover, and we're not going to see that environment supportive of strong tornadoes. So hopefully we do see these storms in the late morning and early afternoon in Michigan and in Ohio, because it will limit the overall severity that tomorrow could hold. However, if we don't see many of these storms in that early time period, and we can see the air mass recovering, all bets are off, because this cold front here is situated over western Michigan, including Kent County, by 4 p.m. tomorrow is going to be right up the mark to produce tornadoes. So something that we're definitely watching, and this cold front moves out of Michigan and northern Ohio as we get into the evening period. So hopefully, again, we do see those early storms suppressing the later activity, because if we don't, take a look at how favorable this environment is for strong tornadoes across Michigan into the lower Great Lakes here. It's not common at all, and this is even by the time that we did see the storms move out, and this is along the cold front, it's not common at all to get STP values over 7 across Metro Detroit. So very, very interesting parameter space. The wind shear is there. The instability and moisture is going to be in question depending on how much these storms impacted earlier in the day. But if we can see these ingredients come together, the ceiling is pretty high. So definitely keeping an eye on this as we go throughout the day tomorrow. Now, a lingering threat of isolated to scattered severe weather will continue across the mid-Atlantic as we head into Thursday. Right now, it's just a marginal risk, could get upgraded in later outlooks, and this would be from North Carolina all the way up there into the northern part of the mid-Atlantic. We're not going to go over this too much right now. The tornado threat's going to be significantly lower, but there will likely be a threat of damaging winds and hail with this. But right now, again, it is just a marginal risk, and we don't have all the models that we need in this kind of time range to give an accurate forecast on it. So just know that isolated severe weather is going to be possible across these areas, but confidence is going to get better on it as we get a little bit further along into time. So this is a multi-day potential severe weather and tornado outbreak. If you guys did enjoy this video and you want to see more of them, be sure to subscribe to the channel with those post notifications turned on, and also be sure to drop a like on the video if you guys want other people to get this information as well. But until the next video or live stream, stay safe, and I will talk to you guys back here next time.